Wheeler. I'm from South Bay, Florida. I'm a registered nurse, former school nurse, former correctional nurse. Now I work in a long-term care facility. I'm the mother of 4 children, 3 boys, 1 girl, 2 baby daddies. I would like to share something with you all. Although I did not make any decision lightly, I reached the conclusion that there was never going to be a time when Ms. Wheeler was going to work with Mr. Webley in a conscious effort to have a strong relationship between Mr. Webley and his daughter. That was a very difficult thing to watch unfold here during the final hearing and the history of this case. So as frustrating as that was, I had fully intended to make Mr. Webley the primary residential parent and shift the visitation to Ms. Wheeler. There's a lot of things wrong with that statement. That is a quote from my court transcript before Judge James L. Marks, Palm Beach County Court. Despite what people think, the courtrooms do not belong to judges. Judges don't make the law, and judges do not get to disregard which laws they don't find important. In Florida, there has to be a motion, petition, or counter petition in order to modify custody. In my case, there was none of that. So when he said that, what this judge said was he was going to violate the law.
How did you feel when that happened? I mean, what?
It was a surreal moment. I was like, I can't believe this. How do you sit there and do everything right, do everything the court requires, and never violate, and then walk out and with a judge telling you
is illegal, basically,
to modify custody illegally?
And how much did you have to pay for all of this up front?
I initially had an attorney. I paid him $1,700. It was going to be $1,700. I paid him $1,100. As a result of this judge's attempted illegal actions, I actually had to have him recused and go through the expense of an entire another trial. I ended up paying $12,000, missing tons of time from work, and the emotional stress is unbelievable. I mean, it affects me to this day.
And how does it affect your children?
My children are better now. Since the dad is out of the country, he's in Nigeria. He left in July of 2013.
So things are much more peaceful now.
Things have calmed down. So it's good. So as long as he's in Nigeria, we're good.
Okay.
This is not the father of my 3 sons, just my daughter. But things have settled down now. And as a result of my experience, I've become an advocate for changing the family court system. If you have not had the unfortunate experience to be involved in the family court system, you may not understand what I'm going to convey here today. But I hope you never have to.
What are the most important things that need to happen in our family court system?
First of all, we need to have recording of family hearings. Many people don't know family hearings are not required to be recorded.
So we need a law in place that requires that the entire case is recorded.
Yes, we need a law in place to make that happen. I've been reaching out to my senators and my representatives to sponsor a bill to make it mandatory to record family hearings.
What senator do you have on your side?
I don't want to say right now because he might back out. So
Okay.
After it comes out, I'll be happy to say.
Right.
But I wrote Florida Supreme Court in 2013, I think it was. And Supreme Court Justice Fred Lewis agreed with me. And he took the issue to the rest of the justices. And he obtained a majority vote. And now the issue is supposed to be under study.
Okay.
I don't know the status of that. But I'm not waiting for them to maybe make it a rule. It needs to be law.
So do you call him back on the study? Have you reached back to him?
No, you don't really have contact. I followed a couple of the notes from the Florida Bar Family Law Committee, and they've taken it under study, but I don't know what the status of that is.
So why can't they report that to you? Why can't they give you that information? Why do you have to fight so hard for information that...
They just say it's under study. That is it. So, but I'm not waiting for them. I'm asking that our senators or one of our reps sponsor a bill to make it a law, and then it doesn't have to be under study, because it's up to a judge if he wants to record a hearing. Many of the offices in the state of Florida, the courtrooms, have the ability to record.
They
but
won't.
Judges choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And we right now have a crisis in civil courts. Florida Supreme Court Justice LaBargia created the Commission on Access to Civil Justice to address the crisis in the civil justice system, and a great part of that is the family court system. Well, if you don't even have records as to what transpired a couple of months ago in the hearing, then there's no wonder it's chaotic. Our family court system operates in a very unorganized manner. Things that are common sense, like having a record of what was testified to 2 weeks ago, doesn't happen. So if you can't even confirm what the testimony was 2 weeks ago, how can you confirm if someone is lying or telling the truth?
Right.
You can't.
Mm-mm.
And that's my goal. They try to paint me as a disgruntled litigant, but I'm not disgruntled. I have my daughter. I survived. But it's not enough for me to survive. I need the system corrected so another person doesn't have to go through this. And that's what I'm doing.
Well, I commend you. After all of the information you've gathered, all the research you've gathered, there's so many people that are going through this that don't have your fight, that don't have your education and your knowledge and your willingness to learn and sit here and speak in what I call people speak, which is a general term for journalists, to relate to the common person. There's so many people suffering in silence that don't know their laws, and they are robbed blind. All their money is gone. Their children are taken away. And it's got to stop. And as I understand it, as you are saying to me, there are ways that we can do this.
And the first way is to first have a record of what happens. Now, the judge that was in my case, James L. Martz, he was moved to my little small community out in Belgrade, Florida. You know, they call us a third world country.
They'll move the problem judges around. They won't fire them. They'll move the problem people around.
And that's what happens. I say they move bad judges around, like the Catholic Church moved pedophile priests.
Yeah, or any cult religion.
Yeah. And I just say that in humor, but that is what
No,
happens.
it's the truth.
They do move bad judges around.
They will do that with school systems. They will move presidents and superintendents.
Yes.
They will move them and they bounce them around because they're a club.
And what happened is he became YouTube famous as the unruly judge. And as a result, he doesn't like to have his hearings recorded. Fortunately, Belgrade is a small town. We have 2 courtrooms. And sometimes they forget to turn off the recording devices. And I'm blessed in that they forgot to turn off the recording devices. So I actually have transcripts to confirm a lot of what I'm saying. I'm not a bad baby mama. I'm not a bitter baby mama.
No.
I never violated the court's order. One of the most memorable things that was done was the father said I was frequently late for time sharing. And to show, and I'm not getting caught up in my story, I just want to illustrate how common these things happen. He said I was late for time sharing numerous times. Well, under testimony, he was asked how many times I was late. He said several, 2 come to mind. And I remember saying, okay, isn't it true you only picked our daughter up for me 1.5 times? He's like, yeah, most of the time I picked her up from the babysitter. And I was like, okay, was I late the first time? Oh, I don't remember. But he remembered I was late, but he doesn't remember what time it was.
So the judge took his side anyway.
So the second time, I asked him, was I late the second time? He's like, did I introduce you to the babysitter? He said, yes. I said, was I late? Oh, I don't remember. Well, the kicker was, I asked him, isn't it true after the first 2 times you picked our daughter up from the babysitter? And he's like, yes. And I said, well, how could I be late? As things progressed in the hearing, miraculously, the video stopped recording for 32 minutes. But enough of the video was recorded to show that many of the allegations made against me were unfounded. The truth is, I was never late. The truth is, I never violated the court's order. The truth is, I was only under court order to give him time sharing every other weekend. And I extended way more days than that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have a judge saying that I'm not working in a conscious effort, it's wrong because it's not true. And judges do not get to misrepresent the truth.
Well, it's also emotional violence because it makes you feel like you're crazy.
I never doubted my sanity.
Well, that's good.
I never doubted my sanity.
You are very strong, but that's not...
But what I did doubt was that I didn't believe that I lived in a system that would allow this to happen, because I was taught if you tell the truth and you go on to court and you go by the court's order, you will be fine. And I did that. And it was confirmed plenty of times that I had never violated the court order. As a matter of fact, I did everything. During testimony, it was proven that the father lied multiple times. But yet, on July 22nd, I was sitting in a hearing with a judge telling me he was going to modify custody. That hearing was really strange because it was an emergency hearing related to the father's request to take our daughter to Nigeria. I'm African American, not African. The father is African American, not African. So this is not a case of him going back home with our daughter. Nigeria is a no-hate convention country. And what the hate convention is that if a child is kidnapped or in a country illegally, that country will help get your child back. Nigeria is not a signatory to that. So this judge was prepared to illegally modify custody and send my child to a country that is not a party to a hate convention.
So there would have been no way you could have gotten your child back.
I could have appealed.
Oh,
but
well.
appealing a decision that I don't have the right to enforce is not really productive. In addition, an appeals attorney costs a minimum of a $20,000 retainer to start.
So let me ask you, things have quieted down for you, but you are still advocating. Why?
Because it's not right. I mean, my daughter she's 3 years old now. I got my sons, I love them. But I was in a house with 5 girls, and I never thought I was going to have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have her. I love her. She's amazing. But to have that taken away, to give to a person that has no interest in her, is heartbreaking.
Right, and he's just a complete narcissist who just wants power and control.
He left on July 23rd, 2013. He has not communicated with our daughter. He has not requested to see her. What I do now is I send emails to the father, some with pictures, and then I file a copy of the email in the court's record. He never responds. But no judge will be able to say, I have not made an attempt, even though it's not my responsibility. The father was in this country in 2014, I think it was May, for court. He declined my attempts to let him see our daughter when he was here. So when I have a judge whose judgment is so poor that he was going to take my daughter and give to a man that has not attempted to communicate with our daughter since he left on July 23rd, 2013, it makes me question the judge's judgment.
And there's too many judges like this that you've run up against and stories that you've heard. Is it safe to say that you want to advocate to change the entire family court system so no one has to go through this?
Yes, that is what I'm trying to do. I'm a nurse by profession, and we operate under the rule: if you didn't write it, you didn't do it. We have to document everything, but the exact opposite is true. It's the exact opposite in family court. Family court is based on subjective data, with the under the assumption that there's a lot of confusing things taking place, and it's not. I'm a nurse, and we do objective and measurable. For example, there's a way to determine if I was compliant with the court's order of time sharing.
Mm-hmm.
If there were 20 visits, the judge would say she missed one. So she was compliant 95% of the time. If I missed 2 visits, I was compliant 90% of the time. If I missed 10, 50% of the times. But that's not what our courts do. They go on subjective. When the assertion was made I was late several times, several turned into 2, and 2 turned into none.
So basically the judges just make up the rules as they go.
They make up the rules. They choose to disregard
the law
and testimony. And if the average person took the time out to really go in there and look, they would be surprised. They would be surprised at what takes place. And it is a red flag when a judge doesn't want an accurate reflection of a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
When the majority, if not all of our family court judges decline to record hearings.
And so all of this money that they get, that the lawyers are paid, it's got to go somewhere, right?
I would spend it a lot. $12,000 may not be a lot to a judge. $12,000 to a single mother is huge. In my case, it's lucky because I was actually blessed to find an attorney. Actually, I hired the attorney in the YouTube video. And, she was really good about allowing me to have a payment plan.
Sure.
And so that helped me. But a lot of times, if you don't have the monies up front, you don't have an attorney. And as a pro se litigant is a person who represents themselves. The courts don't have to give you a court date until they feel like it, whereas an attorney can go and ask for a court date and get it.
So this sounds like a fair legal system to me.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to wrap this.
I have a court motion out.
You do?
A court motion out. It's been out for about a year. They haven't given me a court date for it. What is the court motion for? After I got the replacement judge, another judge was appointed. And this judge refused to go by the law also. But I had a court reporter. So he had to amend his final order. But within that final order, he still refused to go by the law. At this point, I'm financially tapped. I don't have the resources to readdress it. So I file a motion pro se. And he recuses himself. Judge Charles Burton, Palm Beach County Court, recused himself.
To recuse means to say, oops, I'm sorry.
I'm quitting this case.
Oh.
He quit to avoid disclosing that he violated the law. And as a result, that motion that I had out is still out. It hasn't been reassigned. It was reassigned. And they haven't given me a court date. And it's been over a year. But that is our justice system. And we need checks and balances within our court system to avoid this. Judges have been given carte blanche to violate the law. And the Judicial Qualifications of Florida, Commission of Florida, is the entity that is supposed to investigate complaints of judicial misconduct.
And they don't.
Everything about the process is confidential. They say it's confidential to protect the judge's reputation. But within that, you don't know if a judge has 500 or 500 complaints, if probable cause.
So that's another thing that we need to make transparent.
If they don't find probable cause to investigate, we don't know the criteria that they use. It's confidential. We don't know if a judge has 500 or 500 complaints.
But if they work for us, shouldn't everything be transparent? Shouldn't we be able to see their records? And
there are ways to keep the judge's reputation intact while still letting the public know. For example, judges can be prescribed a number that's confidential to only them. The complaints can be redacted, removing the county and the judge's name and the litigant's name.
And this is all legal in our system to do?
Well, it doesn't exist now because we don't get to know anything about the complaints. But if we wanted to, they say it preserves the judge's reputation. Well, they could do redacted complaints.
Why do we need to preserve our employees' reputation?
Because they say people will use this system to get intervention in their cases. There were 3.5 million or so complaints filed one year, and there were only 750 court motions filed. There were 3.5 million court motions filed in 1 year, but there were only 750 JQC complaints. So people aren't frivolously filing motions, because if they were, it would be way more than 750. There are 922 judges in Florida. So 750 mean there are judges that have never had a complaint. There are judges that have had multiple complaints, but we don't know because it's confidential.
So we need to make that transparent.
We need it to be transparent because the JQC, if you read their annual reports.
What is the JQC?
The Judicial Qualifications Commission. They put out an annual report. And if you read that report, it talks more about the motivations of the complainants as opposed to the judge's action. There is a method in place for complainants to be judged. That's our courts. And there is a method in place for judges' actions to be examined, and that is the JQC. But when the JQC focuses more on the complainants as opposed to the judges, it gives the impression of collusion. It is against the law.
And what is collusion?
It gives the appearance that the JQC is working to cover the judge's butt.
Yep.
And
that's not giving an impression. That is straight up covering the judge's butt.
Don't make me be that angry woman.
No, I'm the angry woman. I'm the angry woman here.
But when they talk more about the litigants than they talk, the complainants than they talk about the judges. When you read their report and they say that people are seeking intervention in their case, and that's why they use the JQC. Well, regardless of what the motives are, if misconduct is there, it's misconduct. And you best to believe if the judge would have sent my daughter to Nigeria, I would have wanted all types of intervention. But the judge's action has nothing to do with the complainant's motive. And the fact that JQC focused more on the complainant's motive than the judge's action is huge. And I would love for us to get together, all of us citizens in Florida, and amend Florida's Constitution. Article 5, Section 12 of the Constitution allows confidentiality of all JQC complaints unless probable cause is found. There are ways to get the information to the public. If they're so concerned with protecting the judge's reputation, I say simply redact the complaints. That way it doesn't identify the judge, but it lets the public read what is being alleged.
Well, I strongly believe that these judges work for us, so they need to be identified.
Well, that would be, but it's actually even against the law for me to say if I filed a complaint. We have all types of social media. Those people cannot get together and come and say, Judge John Phillips at pissconsumer.com had people say they have filed complaints against him. He has an entire website dedicated to him, but there's never been a formal investigation. It's not hard to surmise that maybe some of those people filed complaints, but we're supposed to trust the JQC when they say, when a judge gets multiple complaints, we'll look into it. Why does it have to be multiple complaints?
It should be one. And to wrap this up, because we're going to go to part 2 with you, what would you like to see as the public do? What do we need to do to change this?
We need to get together. We need to get our legislators to sponsor bills that make it mandatory to record hearings. We need more laws that provide more structure to the courts, there is a difference between judicial discretion and outright anarchy. And what our judges are doing is making up the law as they go. And when you break the law and then tell me I can appeal it and I have to have a $20,000 retainer to start, it is a huge problem. It gives judges the ability to write law from the bench. And
right, and it gives people that don't have the money absolutely no options.
exactly.
All right, and we'll start with part 2 with Cynthia Wheeler. Thank you so much.
Thank you.